Very much inherited this hobby. So I bought this house about 4 years ago. When moving in, this kind of block ring that you can see here was already in place, but it was basically filled with 4 foot of sludge. It absolutely stunk. It was disgusting, and we got to the point where I didn't know whether to fill it in or to try and make something of it. I've never been into fish. I've never even had a goldfish. But I kind of saw the potential that we could make something of this. Started reading into it, watching YouTubes, trying to learn a little bit about filtration and how to try and... My original goal was literally, oh, if I can get 1 or 2 foot of visibility in the pond, then maybe it'll be okay and I can put a few goldfish in and it might look not like a swamp, which would be nice. And then one thing led to another. Started reading into filtration, started looking at koi, became a little bit obsessed, which I think is a trait of mine really. I have a bit of an obsessive personality at times. So yeah, started looking into it more and more, decided no, we can do better than 1 or 2 foot of visibility and a load of sludge in the bottom of it still. Let's try and do a proper koi pond. Not really considering the fact that it is so big, that there's a lot of challenges that come with a pond that big. A lot of benefits as well, actually. I think people are very quick to focus on the challenges of it when I speak to them about it, but yeah, there are a lot of benefits. But I think the hardest thing to really get beside, and I nearly fell at the first hurdle, was actually getting rid of the amount of sludge that was in there. So I think there was around 50 tonne of sludge that we had to try and get rid of, and I was getting quotes from various different companies to try and remove it, and honestly no one wanted to touch it. The people that did were coming back with, you know, quotes that I could never afford in a million years. So I almost just thought, well, I'll give up, we'll fill it in. And then thankfully I live next door to a farm, and the farmer kindly offered for a reasonable, well, cheap amount I would say really, to come and dig it all out and get rid of it for me. So that was the first step, and I think once we started doing that, it was really a case of how far do you go with it. And it's been very much a trial and error process. It's not been, oh, I know exactly what I needed to do from the start. I've had no professional help at all from any pond builders, so it's been me reading on forums, speaking to people. And it's difficult because there's no precedent really with a pond like this. I think the difference when, you know, with a formal raised pond of a more normal size, there's more of a template that you can follow. Whereas I think for this, I didn't really know what to do at the start. So I read more and more, watched more YouTubes. I ended up lining it. Ideally, I mean, I know most modern ponds now are fiberglassed. I think I would need to win the Euro Millions to fiberglass this, to be completely honest. One day I'd love to do it, but I don't think it's going to happen. So yeah, lined it. Decided that I was going to need drum filters really, because of the amount of debris and physical waste I was going to have to try to remove. So everything was pointing me to drums. So I went for similar to really a lot of the normal pond setups you see. So it's bottom drains through to 2 drum filters. So I've got Burton's drum filters, which are really good, but I really rate those. So, and I've got 2 relatively small, when I show you the filtering, relatively small drum filters that are looking after this whole pond. The bit that I was struggling with is, on a normal pond, you know, you'd expect, but people push for crazy turnover rates. So you see some turning over the pond every 30 minutes. You know, Ricky always kind of says 2 hours. I was looking at this, and my theory from the bits of reading I could find on ponds like this is that because it's, I don't know, 10, 20 times bigger than an oil pond, it doesn't mean I need 10 or 20 times the amount of filtration to be able to achieve the same outcome. Because ultimately, the number, I've got 43, I think, fish in here now. The number of fish is still grossly understocked compared to most normal sized ponds. So actually the waste that's produced, it doesn't need, you know, as much extra filtration as you think. Basically, because I've only been doing this for about 3 years, I've bought from various different places. So I started off buying from any kind of pond closures or people on forums. I was buying from all different places, and it's the worst thing you can do really. So I was introducing all these fish with no quarantine into the pond, continually having problems with parasites. Every time I start to get over it, I'd see another great buy that I couldn't pass up come up that I'd end up going for, and you know, problems would continue. So got to a period where I'm trying to get a bit more stability. The main dealer I use at the moment is Warwickshire Koi. So Rich at Warwickshire Koi, he's been absolutely brilliant. So he's sourced me some of my best fish in here are all through Rich. There, I've got some others actually that have come from Koi Wholesale through Stockport Marine and Koi. That's not far from me as well. So that's when I first started with lots of the smaller fish. I've still got some in here now that have grown so well. So I've got a real mixed bag. I've got various ages. I think the oldest is 12 now. I mean, the biggest in the pond here that you can see, this 91 centimetre monster here, Godzilla. So this was from another YouTuber, Rastakoi, who's another YouTuber, Chip. So I was speaking to Chip and he wanted another home for her. He's had her for a long time. She's got a bit of damage to the benny on her head that you see there, and Chip, you know, keeps a pond of showfish. So I guess my pond's become a retirement home for showfish to some extent, which is fine by me. So yeah, but yeah, various different sources. The difference being now that I've got a proper quarantine facility, so I quarantine the fish before they go in, and I've managed to get a lot more stability in the pond thanks to that, because treating, I mean, it's 190,000 litres, 42,000 gallons, so trying to treat this volume of water, it can be costly, but then I think, like everything, you find ways around the problems. If you really want something to work, you find ways. So I buy the a lot of the treatments direct from the chemical manufacturers, so I can buy it in bulk and keep the cost down. It doesn't have a pretty picture of a koi on the packet, but it removes the koi tax. So for most, apart from fluke treatments, I can get reasonably priced treatment for the pond. So like I say, I think you find ways to adapt if you want to make it work. I've got a bit of a mix, but mainly go Sankey just for size is the key thing, and I am a bit size obsessed with the fish, only because of the size of the pond. If it doesn't get to a decent size, it looks lost, and it kind of just doesn't give any impression, and you can't really make out the sizes. I mean, this kahaku here is 84 cm, the chag is I think 81, 82 now. Like I said, the other one we showed you, 91. And they don't look that big because they're in such a big body of water. So go Sankey primarily because of the, you know, for the kahaku and the Sankey get to the decent sizes. I love showa. I've got quite a few showa in here as well. But yeah, I'm not really fixed on particular varieties. It's kind of whatever catches my eye, but usually it has to have some ability to get to, or at least I can hope it has some ability to get size on it. So I've been moving fish on that haven't been growing to where I want them to, and not getting to the sizes that I hope. So trying to just get to 40 or 50 really big fish. And the problem is I can't afford a pond of showfish, right? And there's, you know, you look at these and there's none of them are perfect. They're nice fish and probably wouldn't do very well in a show, a lot of them. Various, you know, I have a lot that have bits of secondary benny coming up, like this one here on the cheeks, and you know, I bought that knowing that was the case because it was, you know, a quarter of the price of what it would have been if it was perfect. So I've kind of taken some decisions like that to try to fill the pond, I guess, with fish that I like, but knowing full well that, you know, I can't have a pond full of perfect fish that I could take to shows. So. Well, that was what I want. That was the main thing I wanted, because it would have been so much easier to just start from scratch and build an out-of-ground pond and have a formal raised pond. And I've seen some absolutely amazing formal raised ponds. Some of the ones that have been on the Koi Talk videos, they're awesome. But I just think in this garden, again, this was part of the landscape that I bought. I've kind of inherited the size and shape of it. And I had a bit of a vision of building this decking and the bar around it like we have, having the waterfall, and you know, it's what I had in my head. So it would have been a hell of a lot easier to just ditch it, to be honest, and completely start again with a raised pond. But I like in-ground ponds. It's what I don't, for whatever reason, it just appeals to me more. I like looking at the fish from above. I do see the advantages of windows. Actually, some of my friends have got windows, and there's definite advantages from being able to see, you know, any knocks on the fish from the side. You get a different perspective of them, which is great as well. But for me, it was more trying to keep it within the landscape of the garden and the house and keep it all in keeping. I think it's an very old-fashioned house. I think a modern raised pond might not have really suited the area, so I wanted it to be, like I say, something I can come down and enjoy. Like I said, I've got the bar, and I spend a lot of time down here when the weather's all right, which is not that often in Cheshire, but try to make the best of it. And yeah, I wanted more, you know, some variety in there. Just it's interesting. It's good because I even like the window cleaners that come, you know, any delivery man, the amount of them now that I know quite well, they also, can I go down? And I find them, I'll look out the window sometimes and I'll see them stood by the pond, and they come down, and it's nice really. It's like an attraction, like a local attraction where I make no money. Stability, right? There's so much water that you get a level of stability that you don't get. Then the fish aren't on the same level of life support that they are on in a smaller raised pond. So for instance, actually the first time I was supposed to be doing this video with Koi Talk, I had a problem where there was a rip in the liner, and I had to drain out half of this pond, which took a very long time. We had a couple of weeks, well, I had I think a whole week where there was no filtration, no heat, nothing at all for the fish, whilst we were draining it down, repairing, and then picking it back up. You know, in a normal pond, they'd have been in a real mess, possibly dead at that point. But it actually retained a fair level of heat. The ammonia and nitrite levels were still pretty low when I actually tested. I didn't dare test them throughout. I tested them right at the end, and they were actually all right. So I'd been fretting for nothing. But yeah, it's that stability you get from the big body of water, the growth as well. I mean, the small fish that I put in have been growing incredibly well, and like I say, it is deceptive when you look at them because of the size of the water, but when you get them out and you realise and you measure them, we've been getting some fantastic growth without things being perfect and without really pushing them. So I think the volume of water makes more difference than people sometimes give it credit for. I think there's a lot of, don't get me wrong, I've seen some amazing growth in smaller ponds, and things like RO and plenty of water change seems to enable that. It kind of creates that the effect of a bigger body of water. But actually having I guess it's the space to swim, move around. I pile the food in for them as well, and generally I have relatively small filtration compared to the size of the pond, but because of the amount of dilution, I guess, of the waste, it handles it. And at peak I was feeding nearly 2.5 kilograms of food a day, so it's a hell of a lot going in there, and it's been dealing with it. So yeah, I think there are definite benefits. Downsides for sure though. Treatment cost has been crazy. Now we're obviously in the electric and gas cost problem that we've all got. You know, I have a gas heater for this, so it's heated, it's 18 degrees at the moment. Normally this time of year I'd already have the covers on it, and the covers themselves were challenging themselves. So I have floating covers that cover most but have an area open. But the gas cost, the electric cost, because I'm turning it over once every 3.5 hours. There's a lot of pumps. I think I've got 5 air pumps. I've got 3 main pumps, one of them being a big flow friend. I've got various sump pumps that control any flooding and things around the pond. So there's a lot goes into running it, which is obviously a downside and becoming more of a downside as the costs go up. But beyond that, you know, I'm really pleased with it. I'm really pleased. Like I say, it's been trial and error. There's been things that haven't worked. I've had to keep adapting it. I've already got a couple of things I'm thinking about doing next year to further improve it. I think it's just going to be an evolving pond that I keep adding bits to. I keep telling myself I'm going to try and keep it around this 40-50 fish mark, no more, because I can't. The food cost alone is ridiculous, but it's a very addictive hobby, isn't it? And especially around harvest time, and you're seeing all these wonderful fish being pulled from the mud ponds, it's quite hard to not get involved. But yeah, if I can keep it to around 40 or 50, slightly improve the filtration. I've got a few things I want to do. I'm weighing up what to do with the waterfall at the moment. I think there's a few improvements I can make on that just to make it less labour intensive in terms of keeping everything clean. My routine at the moment, I've got once a week I clean out the drums and the filter room. That's all fairly straightforward, but the waterfall's quite big, and I've got large pebbles in that, mainly for visual effect, but they do start to over time build up some kind of sludge, which isn't good, so I have to keep, take those out, vac it all out, clean it out, and keep on top of that. And it's a bit of a pain at times, so I'm wondering whether to just fiberglass and lose some of the pebbles. But I do like the look of the waterfall. I wanted it to feel natural, I guess. That's the thing. I wanted it to look and feel natural, but have the modern filtration and be able to sustain the fish and feed them well and grow them to a decent size. That is my aim now. I mean, the water that comes down, it's already been through a drum. There's a double Momotaro Baki shower full of Baki house media in the bamboo box that you can see. So it's been through a fair amount of filtration, but it does build up over time, and I do try and keep on top of it. But I think that's definitely one improvement I'm looking to do next year. I think the other, I'll probably add some more, another moving bed with some extra filtration. Just as the fish grow, I'm going to have to go more than 2.5 kilograms a day. I think I'll have to keep pushing it up, and I don't know where the limit is at the moment on the pond, but I think there's no harm in adding an extra biofilter, and I've got the space luckily under the decking to try and make that work. I obviously, like everyone, seems to make the same mistake in terms of filter rooms and it's their first ponds, and my filter room is way undersized, and if there's one thing I could change, I would go and make that 2 or 3 times the size. I don't know what I was thinking. Looking back now, it was probably just inexperience, I guess, and to me, I thought, we can fit the drums and that'll be enough. But yeah, I should have made it much bigger. But hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? And I've found ways to expand it. So, for instance, I've used a K+ advanced pressure filter that's above pond level. The boiler I've got an enormous swimming pool boiler that keeps this warm, so that's above pond level. And I've found ways to keep that all under the decking, so none of it's visible. It all runs well, but it's doesn't require space in the filter room. So it's just trying to keep expanding it with the limitations that I've kind of built into it. So as mentioned, two Burton drums, small ones, as you can see, because I had to fit them in the space I've got, and they're the main mechanical filtration for the pond. I've got a small moving bed here, full of Helex media, and then as I said, really the rest of it is a large double Momotaro Baki shower, which is running the waterfall. I've got a K+ advanced filter, a big one of those, which is above level, which is where this pipe goes to. I've got a lot of air pumps, so I've got four there that run the air bar in the pond, and I've got another small one that runs the moving bed up there. So I've got a lot of pumps. The beast of a pump here, the Flow Friend that I've got, which runs the waterfall. So that's the main pump, and that thing's awesome. That just the amount of water that moves is incredible. And yeah, the big thing on this pond, again, because my turnover rate is slightly slower than normal ponds, has been UV. So one of the things I've had to adapt is that the pond was getting quite green with algae, and the UV that I had in the drums wasn't cutting it. So I've now got 4, you can see them actually here. So I've got large amalgam UVs, big 80 watts. I've got one of those in each of the 4 bottom drain pipes coming into the drums, as well as the UV in the drum. So I've got a hell of a lot of UV, but it does keep it clear, and that's what I found. Just trial and error, really. I've had to keep working out how to get things to work when it didn't work as planned. I think the other big thing is because of the length of the runs on the bottom drains, I have to purge them every week without fail. That's a religious kind of part of my maintenance. So I've adapted. I've kind of built in purge valves onto the pipes where I had space just to make that a bit easier. But if I don't do that, the pull that's coming through these is not quite enough to keep it completely clear. So I do have to do that manually just to keep it all running properly. I'm trying to increase the amount of oxygen going in. Whether it's needed or not in this pond, I'm still not 100% sure. But I've been trialling an air bar, so I've had a 5-meter air bar made instead of just using the bottom drain aerators. They've got this air bar here, so yeah, trialling that at the moment. It seems to be really good. That was a company called Aqua Aeration, quite a new company, but they're making them for koi ponds and they're doing quite well. So it seems a really good bit of kit. But yeah, just seeing how that goes as well as the bottom drains. podcasts and videos. So I started watching those. I didn't know anything about koi wholesale. I've heard it mentioned because my local dealer, Stockport Marine Koi, they get some stock from there. So he has mentioned it to me, but I didn't know anything about Ricky and koi wholesale. So I started watching those videos, and then I've kind of seen from there that Koi Talk's obviously been started up, and decided to subscribe and get the back copies, and then obviously started following the Koi Talk video content as well. So yeah, it's been really good. I think the hobby there's so much to learn, isn't there, especially when you're relatively new to it, and you learn a lot through your own practical experiences. But if you can pick up knowledge from magazines or videos from people like Ricky and Chris, who've been doing this for 30 years or whatever it is, it's invaluable really. And I think the magazine, as well as just being generally koi obsessed and wanting to be able to consume whatever content there is out there, I think the magazine, it's got some amazing fish in it, but actually some of the articles, there's stuff, stuff to be learned, I guess, through that, which I like as well. I like to always continue learning whatever I'm doing. I think that's probably one of the main attractions of this hobby to me, is it's bloody hard. It's not something you can, you start doing and then suddenly you know it all within 6 months or a year. It's something that takes you years and years, I think, to really master. And I think the challenge is one of the things that I really enjoy about it. It's keeps my attention, I guess, because there is so much to keep learning.